Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Millennial Think Tank. And tonight we are focusing on contract workers, particularly in the U.S., and how that's impacting, or how that may impact the economy and the employee-employer relationship. Normally I start with a lot of statistics, but the data that I'm really interested in Albert, you're in here twice. The data I'm really interested in is that predictions are that 40% of American workers will be freelancing or basically contract workers by 2020. And it's a huge shift from when I graduated in the early 90s, when I graduated from college. And all of you have some experience, both contract and full-time. So I'm going to start and have you introduce yourselves. Albert, we're going to start with you. Now he left. Hung, we're going to start with you. So tell us, who you are, what you do for a living, where you are in the millennial spectrum.
Yeah, no problem.
And where you are geographically. Okay, go.
Okay. So my name is Hung Fan. I'm the founder of Culture Summit. It's a conference that brings together founders, thought leaders, entrepreneurs to talk about how they've built great companies using culture. I've also been contracting. So I've been contracting for the last, I would say, 6 years. I've worked at companies like Cisco, Yahoo, and I'm located in San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay, I'll have a lot of questions. Sorry, I know it in my mind, but I can't remember right now. What's the company you founded? What's the organization called?
It's called Culture Summit.
Okay, I will definitely have questions for you on that. All right, Kelly, you want to go?
Hi, my name is Kelly. I'm in the middle of the millennial spectrum, 28. I live in Stockton, but I work a low-wage job in San Jose. And yeah, I've had experience with contracts for low-wage positions, which I think is probably much different than what a lot of what we're going to talk about is, but I just thought it's an interesting perspective to bring in that there are contracts that are going to pay you $50 for 3 months of work and contracts that pay you $200,000 for a year.
No, Kelly, we are going to talk about it because there's a huge juxtaposition. There's a lot of blue-collar contract work. You might not be thinking of it that way, but like construction companies and subcontractors, and there are different rules for white-collar and blue-collar, it appears. So we'll talk about a lot of that. Kelsey?
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I'm 26, and I live in San Francisco Bay Area in the South Bay. And I work at Palo Alto University as a project manager, and I've been contracting with them for a year and a half. And being a project manager, I negotiate a lot of contracts and manage a lot of vendors. So I myself I'm a contractor, and then I also manage contractors as well.
Okay, thank you. And Mary?
My name is Marianne, and I am a junior designer at an architectural firm in Sarasota, Florida. I've also done a lot of contracting while I was in college to sustain both being able to work and having classes.
All right, and where do you fall in the millennial spectrum?
Oh, I'm, I guess, middle, 24.
Yeah, so it's 18 to 35 roughly, so you're in the younger segment of it. Okay, Albert?
Hi, my name is Albert. I am a 27-year-old millennial, newly moved to Orange County, California, working in a tech company out here. And I guess I could say that out of the 50 to 60 months that I've been out of school since graduation in June of 2010, I've spent about, I guess, that number minus 10, I guess, so about 50 months in contract roles in tech and whatnot. But the role that I am in right now is a permanent full-time role.
Okay. I just have to note, I have to note one thing. So while the whole country's frozen, none of us live in cold states. We're either in California or Florida. That's kind of funny. All my friends who are so sick of seeing my beach pictures. Okay, so I want to talk about, what are the lengths of your contracts normally? Are they always yearly and then renewed? And just jump in. I mean, Albert, are yours always year to year? You're not a contract employee now, right? Aren't you finally a full-time employee?
I am, yeah. I'm a full-time permanent employee here. And so I would say that the contracts that I've had, thankfully, are very long-term contracts. So I've contracted for two different companies that have contracting as something of a mainstay. So at HP, I was there for 10 months on a 10-month contract, and at Cisco, I was on a 3-month rolling contract, or what people in the industry and in the valley over there call forever contracts.
What does that mean? So you are only contracted for 3 months, so they could let you go at any point, but you know it's going to be renewed?
Yeah, you're pretty much guaranteed renewal. It's just that they have it on a 3-month rolling basis because that's just what Cisco always does. And
how does that benefit them? That benefits them because they can ditch you at any 3-month segment?
Yeah, pretty much if they don't like you or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and how does that benefit you? It doesn't at all?
I mean, I guess that benefits me because I could stay there for like ever and ever if I wanted to. I met some people at Cisco while I was contracting there, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I've spent 15 years here in this specific contract role," and so these people just basically do that. And I mean, it's the equivalent of working full time at Cisco, as like if you were a permanent employee.
Except
as a contractor, you don't go on to their full-time roles. Those are the numbers that are seen by investors, and so when Cisco actually gets rid of a lot of people, they bring some of these people back as contractors. They kind of go under the radar.
And you don't get benefits. You don't get benefits. Do you get vacation? Do you get vacation?
You don't get any vacation either.
Are you allowed to take any time off?
You can take time off. It just will be unpaid.
The communist to me is just like, wow. Okay, so Hung, when you
the
were
salary might be higher, so
okay. Well, how do you do? Okay.
Roles,
okay. Mm-hmm. That would be the benefit.
Thing with contract roles is you do get that higher contract rate. So if you were, say, making $60,000 a year as a full-time employee at Cisco, maybe you go the contracting route, and that rate goes from the $30 an hour you would get as a full-time permanent employee to like $40 an hour. But that's minus the benefits. So you make up like that $20,000 difference by having to buy your own health care and buy your own insurance and do that whole thing.
But I think one thing, it's important to mention, Albert, is that it's not just the benefits, right? You don't get vacation time. You don't get any bonuses. I mean, Cisco is not like a great company right now where you get big bonuses, but say if you were to contract at Google or Facebook, well, you're obviously missing out on bonuses, stock options, things like that are, more that are bigger to the bottom line than just saying, okay, well, I have a higher rate now. It balances out.
And does anybody? I mean, I'm kind of getting in here deep. All right, wait a second. Let's shift. But Hung, I want to come back and ask you a lot of questions about that. But Kelly, tell me about your contracts at your. He usually calls himself a minimum wage slave. Tell me about your. What are they like, and what's the point of them?
So most recently, I did contracted work to coach hockey at an ice rink, and essentially that was, to me, a way they could get away with getting me to do work without actually having to pay me. In all honesty,
wait, I have some questions. Were your hours set? So you had to be in there from X to X, and does that happen with? All right, you answer first. Is it like a 9 to 5 or 10? Do they dictate the hours you have to be on premises?
Yes, but it wasn't a lot of hours. It was basically 2 hours a week.
Okay.
So it wasn't a huge thing, and like I said, I was only upset because I misread the contract. I got a $50 stipend for working there for 3 months, roughly something like 60 hours of work, and free ice time. So I wasn't complaining too hard about it. The other thing that I've done contracting-wise is working door-to-door sales, and that was much different. I mean, that was signing the 50-page pamphlet where the lawyerings were laid out in such a way that was basically, it's legal for us to make you work 60 hours a week. It's legal for us to force you to be on premises even when you're sick. It's legal for us to get away with this, that, the other, and literally not pay you anything except on commission.
Yeah, well, that's commission sales. All right, Mary, tell me about so you're contracted with the architect firm that you're working for, or you were?
Technically, with where I'm at right now, I am under contract as an intern because it's part of my final semester
But you're
here.
paid? You're paid?
Yes, I am paid, but I don't. Other than the internship contract, I have no formal contract.
Yeah. Okay. And have you had other contracts? And how long is it for?
For this internship contract, it ends in May, or I guess the end of April when our semester formally ends. But most of my work has been, I guess, technically freelancing, of where there's been no official changing of signatures for it. But yeah.
Okay. I'm muting you, Albert. So just because you're making noise. Okay. Kelsey, tell me about your contracts. You've been there for how long?
I've been there for a year and a half. Yeah, I was trying to get the exact number, but I got hired on by someone else at PAU, a different person than I'm working for now. And it was like a 2-month contract, and then they renewed it again, and then they renewed it again. And then I asked for a 6-month contract, and then another 6 months as well. So I really like it. I was really nervous when I first got hired on as a contractor because I knew that they could basically that it was written in there that they could, give me 2 weeks and fire me just like let me go just like any other full-time employee. But the reason that they need to do contract is because our president has a year left. And he's 87 years old, and he has very different views about headcounts. So he wants his full-time headcount to be very low, which I think is odd, but I'm in a particular situation where I don't need any health benefits. I don't need 401k. I don't need paid vacation.
But what if you did? It doesn't. You won't get it. You don't get any paid vacation. You get nothing.
No, I get nothing, and I love it because I negotiated a much higher rate that I'd be getting if I wasn't.
How much higher? Give me a percentage.
Well, I can just tell. I'm fine with telling you. I posted on Glassdoor. I get paid $35 an hour, and I was started at 28. And then they offered me a salary in my last renewal with full benefits, full,
And how much less was that?
That they offered me $52,000, and I said no. I
don't know what the difference is. I'm terrible at math. Tell me what you make at $35 an hour approximately.
It's roughly double with a little bit more, I think.
How much? Huh?
It's like a little bit over double, right? So if she's making 35 an hour, it's like probably maybe 72,000 a year.
So it probably makes up for the health insurance if you can get health insurance. I guess in California, I guess with Obamacare it kind of changes everything because you have to be able to get it. But when I was an employee for a company, but there were only a few of us in California, in Pennsylvania. The company was based in California, so my health insurance was a lot more expensive because I couldn't join any HMO. I was stuck. And I always think about that for contract workers. Pre-Obamacare, if you had a pre-existing condition, you were totally hosed if you weren't in a group. So the reason you like it is you get paid a lot more and you feel like you have freedom?
Yeah, I love it. And the reason that I think it's important I stay a contract employee at PAU is because they could abuse my time a lot more, because this summer they were trying to get me to work and not pay for it, and I said absolutely not. And I came back to him and I said, these are my priorities. This is what I have time for in the 40 hours a week that you pay me to work here. Pick what you want me to work on, and then you'll have to leave the rest until later. And so I was reporting to 3 people, and I said in August when I renewed my contract, I wrote in a lot of new sort of like amendments to the contract to say I can only report to 1 person, I'll work 40 hours a week, I'll work where I want, and then they really like toned it down. So it gave me a lot more power, negotiating power. Because
okay, wow, okay, so you must be really good at your job. Because, but Hung, tell me, does that happen? That same scenario?
No.
In tech where you
I'll
are.
give you a couple stories. So, I'm 35 this year, so I'm like the borderline, barely made it millennial, and in tech, there's more there's less jobs than there are, people looking for jobs. And I'll give you a couple stories. So I was a full-time employee at Sun Microsystems, and if you know the company back then, it's the equivalent of, say, you working at Google or Facebook now. It's a really big company. And I was really, really depressed when they were bought out, and all of us was let go. And I didn't really know what contracting was, so I kind of just went on vacation for a little bit, came back, and said, okay, well, I need to find a job. And so the first job I interviewed at was at Cisco, but it was through a contracting company. I didn't really know what that was at the time. So I figured, okay, it's probably the same thing anyway. I get to make a lot of money. And I was in a good team, had a good manager who, was really, really good with how he managed people, and there was no, distinction between contractor and full-time and how he treated people. And so I felt, one of the mistakes I made was that I got stuck being a contractor because I felt a sense of loyalty to the team. And if I can go back now, I would have just worked until I found something that's permanent, right? You don't want to get stuck in that pigeonhole where people start labeling you as a career contractor, because I think that works against you.
And how? Because how does it work against you?
Because when you're like if you're going to try to find full-time jobs now, and they look at your history and you're doing maybe 3 months here, 6 months there, a year here, it doesn't look like you've really sustained any kind of progress and built your skills.
Sure.
And then the negative experience I had was when I left Cisco to go work at Yahoo on another contract, and I left because I wanted a change of scenery and to do something different. It didn't work out for me. My manager and I clashed a lot, and one day she just came in and said, you know what, pack your bags up, like we're letting you go. And there's no you have
no standing. Yeah.
Like you don't know when it's coming. There's no okay, let's work through the problems. They just let you go because they can do that. And for me, if you're not planning to save on the side and creating a buffer, you lose your job. That's devastating, right?
Yeah. And so tell me about the loyalty though to the team. So because I know Albert. Oh, good, he's unmuted. Albert, are you unmuted, Albert? Because I mute. Okay. Albert.
Yeah, I'm muted.
I know Albert. I talked to Albert a lot before he left his job and took the full-time job, and I was like, go. There is no loyalty shown. In my mind, there's no loyalty shown when someone's giving you a contract. But where did your loyalty come from?
Well, I worked I worked at Sun. I was a full-time employee. So when you work at a full-time, at a company, you're a full-time employee. You feel a sense of pride, a sense of ownership. That's what I brought when I came to Cisco, except it was a different scenario because I was a contractor. And I didn't really know how the game was played, so to say, right? These days, I've been contracting for the last 6 years. It's great for me being an entrepreneur because I can just, I don't work as hard. I don't work many hours, as Kelsey said, but it just pays the bills while I try to get my startup off the ground. So it works for me in my scenario. But before I became an entrepreneur, I just hated contracting. I hated the fact that when I was sick, I was forced to come into work by way of thinking that if I took a sick day, I would lose out on $400 worth of work that day because I don't get paid for sick days. Or if I have to take a vacation, well, that week I'm taking out is going to cost me $1,500 because I don't get vacation pay.
So what I'm hearing, and Kelsey spoke to this, you are more productive as a contractor possibly, right? Because you're worried about every dime, right? So it makes you more productive, but less loyal.
I'm actually very loyal to PAU because they've treated me. I got told I get a $30 car wash stipend once a month today because we have to park in a gravel parking lot. So that's great.
Are you kidding me? Every road that's hysterical. In Florida, you could not do that because there's sand everywhere. So it's like you drive down my street, there's dust on your car. Yeah,
I know. I came from Minnesota. I was like, are people really complaining about the gravel park?
Yeah.
But
I would say, as far as I guess why you're loyal to stay, the people. I couldn't wait to get out of Cisco, but HP was a lot more difficult for me, and I think Kelsey knows this because she had lunch with one of my coworkers. I had great coworkers there, and that racked me for a couple of days before.
Well, walk through that because Albert. We talked a lot when Albert was trying to make this decision because I'm like, go. You never stay.
Yeah.
A long time ago, someone gave me advice that if you're offered a job and you decide to take it, and it's usually for more money and a better position, and this has happened to me where the current employer then all of a sudden ups the ante and tries to keep you, and they've always, the advice has always been don't stay because eventually they'll regret it because they'll feel like you pushed them into it. you know,
And
even
they
though you're
might let
worth
you go too. I
yeah,
mean,
or there becomes
counteroffers are the
resentment.
worst.
So Albert, walk through the process though, because you know you definitely
Yeah.
Albert talked a lot about enjoying his role at HP because he was always on different projects and he was learning a lot and expanding his knowledge base and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I
So
was.
so
And
walk through the process of why you struggled, right?
I
Um,
struggled because I think, I had a boss who was very, I think, open to, I think, had teaching me a lot of different things. I got along very well with my coworkers, and, it was in a really, really good area of work as well. I mean, not to say I don't like my new coworkers, I like them as well, too. I'm still in that new, 2 week, new 2 to 3 week, I think, grace
I mean,
period where, I'm trying to figure out what the heck my new company wants me to do and all that stuff. But I mean, yeah, I really like the people in my last company, and I mean, I think it's okay now because now that I've left, they just came out with really, I guess, bad earnings yesterday, and they're laying
because you
off more than
left.
3,000 people, and
No, but I
so
want to go through. I want to go through.
you
Albert
know,
loves his job. Albert gets offered a job, a real job, and I always say that because it's a full-time job with benefits
sure.
and the whole deal. Albert really
hmm
struggles with the decision. How do you decide to? How do you decide to stay, right? And then what does it feel? Does it feel different when you go to work now? So walk me through all of that.
Uh, I mean, so does it feel different? I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm commuting to work in Orange County as opposed to Silicon Valley. I'm driving a completely different route to work. Heck, I mean, I
I
think it
don't mean
was
that.
Monday or
I mean, when does
I
it feel
know.
different to be a?
Yeah, I got lost going home from work on Monday, and I never get lost. I haven't been intentionally lost anywhere for years. But yeah, I mean, the decision to leave, I think, was just really that, I think there was encouragement from coworkers who knew the company I was going to, who were like, if I was in your situation, and these are people that are like, 10, 15 years my senior, and they were like, if I were in this similar situation, I would go to. And and then there's always you can always come back if you want to, because I mean, hey, because I have experience at HP, I have experience at Cisco as both companies, and those companies are gigantic and always looking for some random contract role to fill. And I had even one guy at HP say, hey, if you want to come back in 6 months, just give me a call. I mean, so there's
No,
that, I
no, I want
suppose.
to. Can we talk about
Sure.
your boss wanting you to stay after she found out you were leaving?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, hoping that she never watches this Google Hangout, the moment I said that, I was going to leave, she dropped a lot of guilt tripping on me, right? So there was everything from the, oh, you could have inherited my role, to the, why weren't you like more forthcoming about this, to like everything in the book, right? Like, I think she definitely didn't want me to leave, and I think it was also a combination of the fact that we had lost 60% of our marketing team over the last 10 months.
Why?
And we were literally
Why?
leaving
Tell me why. For
uh,
better jobs?
for people who we laid off 55,000 people company wide, and then we had people leaving because the economy got better, and then we just and then or because the CEO of HP, Meg Whitman, decided that people needed to work near an HP campus, and so
That's
if you
right. She
worked in
took away
Palo
remote.
Alto.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so she took away remote working, and so if you didn't work in a non-sales job, you either had to move closer to a city that HP was located in, and there were a few, right? You could do, I think, Fort Collins in Colorado, Houston, San
okay.
Diego,
Whatever.
and
Yeah.
Palo Alto. And for those people who weren't able to do it, they had to transition out of their roles and go do something else.
All right. We're
And
gonna
so
come. When we do the remote work one, which is on the
yeah,
19th of March. I want you to be on it if you can, because that's a
I
huge.
will.
I totally forgot about that decision. But so
hmm
okay. So now you have benefits, vacation, everything,
Yeah,
401k.
I signed up for healthcare for the first time in about 2.5 years yesterday or this week,
You had no health
and
care as a contractor?
yeah, I had no
You were
healthcare as a
breaking the
contractor.
law. Okay, so you have to pay a
Breaking the
$95
law.
fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
all right.
IRS, if they watch this too, they can see that too. And yeah, I can't take vacation and have it like I think gives me, and then have I think paid vacation for the first 90 days. But yes, I would have I think 10 or 15 days of paid vacation at the end of the year if I decide to take it. And I also get my holidays paid off too, which you don't get when you're a contractor.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like you don't get paid Thanksgiving and you see your check go way, way low. So
Okay.
there's that too.
So you're contracted now?
Yeah, I'm contracted now.
do you want to stay contracted, or is your culture summit something that might be full time someday?
I don't know. So the culture summit is full time because I work around the clock, and that's one part of it. I also have like another micro business where I'm publishing books. So I'm doing a lot of things. My hope is that one of these things will take off where I don't have to work anymore. But I'm also interviewing at the moment. So
Wait a second, so that you don't have to work for other people anymore.
Right,
For other people. Yeah.
But I'm also interviewing with a couple other companies for full-time positions, just in case like these things don't pan out. I would say for new graduates and people who are maybe 1 or 2 years outside of school, contracting is a great way to get your foot in the door. Specifically because they're looking to hire fast, so they're looking for more competent skill. And this is in the tech sector, right? I'm not sure.
Is it no? Okay, so is it highly specialized that they're trying to?
Right. So say at Cisco, they want people to come in who can do the job, right? They're not so much the cultural fit because they're just looking for people who come in and get the work done. I interviewed at Google once for a contracting role that I turned down, which I regret now, but. At that time, I wasn't thinking about the bigger picture and what having Google on my resume would have done for me. But
what were you thinking about?
Well, it was more of a support engineer role, and I was kind of moving towards the path of a program manager, and I had just started at Yahoo like a week already, and I did the interview just to do it. And the interview for contractors at Google is much easier than a full-time employee. So for me, it was just one round of like 2 people versus going through multiple rounds. So definitely for new grads and people who want to get their foot in the door, like contracting is an easy way to get in. Contracting is much easier to interview for, but don't get into the habit of doing multiple contracts where you're like 6 months here, 8 months there, 3 months somewhere else. It just doesn't look good on your resume.
But if you're rolling like the Cisco rolling, okay,
right.
Wait, all right. So you said something. Tell me about company culture because I'll just give you a little bit of history of mine.
Definitely.
I was in sales. And I worked for a very high-end company based out in Santa Ana. And it was an amazing company. It was a carpet mill. It only did about $100 million a year, but our profit margins were like 10 times the average carpet company. And the culture was a huge reason it was so successful. I mean, we made incredible product, but it was so much about the culture and a standard of excellence and all that. And then I worked there when another company bought it and dismantled it person by person because the people didn't matter, and they destroyed the culture. And after 3 years, we did $12 million, or $17 million, or something insane. Like that's how. And I have a lot of respect for culture within a company and how that impacts. And I can say, Comcast, and you get what I mean, versus versus Zappos, right? Like you can just those two companies. So what I'm trying to figure out is how does this contract workforce affect and impact culture? Because if you just come in, like you just said, the interview process is much, much easier for a contractor. It makes sense. They can get rid of you as quickly as they want to. So they don't have, like when I hired a salesperson, I had to think long term about the ramifications of, especially if they were over 40, how am I going to get rid of them? I got to make sure I hire well. And the most expensive thing is to go and hire a new employee, all the training and time. So they're skipping a lot of that. And so how do you think it impacts the culture of a company when the workforce is high percentage is contract?
So I think Albert can attest to this. At Cisco, I would say, and I'm just guessing, but I would say maybe 50% of their workforce is contracted.
And you thought that was not a great company to work for?
It depends, right? I think it's a great company in the sense that if you are older, you have a family, it's great work-life balance. But for someone like me who is very entrepreneurial, I just want to move faster. I want to learn more. I want to work with people who are very ambitious. And that's not saying that Cisco's culture is not great. It's just depending on where you are in your career and what you want out of it. Now, what having a lot of contract workers does for the culture is that it really comes down to how each team manufactures their own culture, right, in their organization. I've worked at a couple different teams at Cisco where it's like, just get the work done, and that's all we care about. So you may have to work with people you don't like, or maybe you guys don't get along, but that's just like, you deal with it. And if you guys can't get along, then whoever the manager likes more, then she'll keep and she'll get rid of the other person.
Oh, I love that you automatically said she. That touched my heart.
That was my
manager.
I was that other person that got rid of, right? But I'm in a team now where I took a lot less money this time because I wanted a team that I felt like at least they would appreciate my ambitions and kind of who I was as a person. And so my team now is great. My manager's great. team is great. But yeah, like when you're doing a lot of contract work, it just really comes down to what the team's culture is.
Yeah, and I can't imagine how it's controlled much. Okay, I want to shift a little bit, Kelly, quickly. When we were talking about being highly productive as a contract worker, because you're getting paid by the hour, so you're not going to take days off. That's what I meant by it. Like you're not as well. It's probably a lot harder to take a sick day because you're giving up a lot of money, like you said, Hung. So Kelly, you put in the chat that that you could see it being less productive because the stress of not knowing day to day where you're going to be. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, okay, I was just bringing up, I've been listening to NPR the other day, and the Fresh Air, and this woman talked about this book she'd written called Finding Your Sweet Spot, and it was all about how basically right now we have this opinion or mentality that says that if you're not busy, like if you're not busy doing something, then you're not being productive. And the psychology actually goes the other way. It says that if you're not taking regular breaks, you're not giving yourself time to think, you're not giving yourself energy and space, then what happens is you can become very repetitive and figure out ways to do things on autopilot, but that's essentially all you know how to do. And I think, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have had jobs here that have felt that way. They get into that groove where it's all you do is you go in and out and you kind of do your thing, but you don't really feel like you contribute anything. And that's becoming a major issue in America's workforce right now. I don't know if that necessarily has something to do with the high levels of contract work, but the fact that you know, deciding to take a sick day really means that you're sacrificing a large amount of money, or, you know, trying to plan a vacation means potentially just getting fired from your job because whoever you're working for might decide, no, you're on a contract, you can't take those 2 weeks of vacation, so if you want to do that, then we'll go find someone else that can do the job.
Yeah.
Can I follow up on what P said, which is really great, is and I didn't think about this until you made a point about being on autopilot. When you're a contractor, there's really no career development, right? That comes from your manager, because as a contractor, you get no access to any HR programs, any training programs, and in some cases, you're just hired to do the same thing over and over again for years.
Like rote. Yes.
Yeah. And so, from a personal standpoint, like you're not developing yourself as a person. You're not developing your skills.
And so that impacts you, but it also impacts a great company like that company I referenced, and I think it was such an education for me to see it done right and see it destroyed, is that my boss, who was the greatest mentor ever, constantly talked to me about succession planning. Like, okay, when you get promoted, Amy, because there was always a channel up, hopefully, then you need to hire and what's the I forget the word I'm looking for, but mentor is not really the word I'm looking for, but the person that's going to come next, because we were always thinking about the company and where will we be down the road. And I wonder, like that, you just said it, if there's not only HR, but if there's not succession planning and cultivating is the word I was looking for, I'm wondering how that impacts companies. Large companies with visions. And I mean, okay, so answer me this if you know it. How many Facebook or Google employees are contractor versus full-time versus looking at Cisco, which you said was 50%? Do you know?
I don't know percentage-wise. I know Google, since they're larger now, they do have a large, force. I don't know percentage-wise, but there's more positions on Google for contractors because I do get calls every week. Facebook, very few, but they're out there.
Okay, I was curious. All right, I want to talk about blue-collar contracting too, because this is really interesting to me. Let me ask you, and Kelsey, are your hours set? You have to be there 9 to. No, you can come and go as you please and get your work done when you want, where you want.
Nope, they had that in my first contract, and so what that was, they put that in my my first 2-month contract, like that I needed to be at the Los Altos location 4 days a week and then work at home 1 day a week, and then 40 hours, and then they kind of set some office hours for me, and that just didn't work. So I want to also say that I'm not contracting with a company. I'm contracting 1099 myself. So I'm, I think, in a different situation because I wrote my contract and I edited it. I sent it to a
Yeah,
lawyer.
and you're negotiating. Yeah, I get that. But the reason I asked this, and so Albert, well, all of you, like Mary, under your contract, do you have to be there specific hours, and is it full time or part time?
I'm there at minimum 32 hours a week.
Okay, and do you have to be there set times?
For the most part, yes. If there is a reason why I can't be in at a certain time, like tomorrow morning I have to wait for the plumber. So
No, but I mean, you have to do your job on the premises when they tell you.
Almost always, yeah. Like
Yeah,
there's
and
certain
Albert and Hung, is it the same thing? Like you can't say, "Hey, I'm working from home," or are you? Or your
Well,
hours?
my company has a policy where
Not where you are now. Sorry, HP. Think contract, not now.
Oh, I mean, I've never seen anything where it says that as a contract.
No, I didn't
it's
mean that. I mean what's
usually-
expected.
I think it's like every once in a while people will work from home. At HP, it's how it went at least. And so if, my boss had a dentist appointment, then she might work from home that day. Or if she has something going on with her kid being sick, she might not come into the office and work remotely.
No, but I mean, what are the expectations? I mean, Hung, when you're working on contract, do you have to?
It really comes down to the manager, right? I've had a manager where it's like 9 to 5, you take a half-hour lunch, you stay back half an hour. And then I have a manager who is like, hey, you can just work one day at home, once a week, no worries. If you have to take time off for the doctors, just let us know, no worries. So it really depends on the manager. And
well, the reason I'm asking this is that in blue-collar work, many years ago in a different lifetime, I ran a flooring contracting business in Boston, and we got fined and paid a $65,000 fine, which was huge for us because we were only like a $2 million business at the time, because we had 22 crews of workers, subcontractors that came in. They had their own insurance, and they worked for us, and we got nailed. And this happened all over the city. I mean, they nailed every contractor because if we were setting their hours, well, we didn't even set hours. If we were saying you work for us 5 days a week and these are the jobs you do, and they weren't working for other people, they should have been employees, and we should have covered them on our insurance, and we got nailed. And that is still an issue with contract construction work, right? And all sorts of like cleaning, I guess, blue-collar jobs. So what I'm trying to get at is, how can it be okay in the white-collar world to have a contract and mandate all of these things, as far as when you have to be there and when you can take off? If I don't get the difference. That's just what I was after.
Well, with that, I work with contractors all the time with working in an architectural firm, and also with some of my business classes. They've covered that issue of the reason that, especially with blue-collar workers, have to be under a company's insurance if they're working full-time or close to full-time hours, is because there's a higher liability with them being out and about, especially with if they're using equipment and things like that. They're working under that company's
No, I know, I get it. But, there's no workman's comp, so okay. What happens if you get hurt at work?
I don't know. I'm not. Yeah.
I know, Albert, Kelsey.
I've never been expected to lift like really heavy stuff, so I really don't know what.
That doesn't. Yeah. No, I mean you fall down. It doesn't matter.
My experience.
If you get hurt, I mean that's kind of up to you, right? So if I get carpal tunnel, I have to go to a doctor and pay out of pocket, or my own insurance. They're not covering anything.
Yeah, Kelly, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say my experience working in door-to-door sales was pretty much if someone shoots you, then you're dead. I mean that. And I'm not even lying.
No, that sounds about right.
But see, this is the thing.
I went through neighborhoods that were pretty dangerous. That's one of the reasons I quit doing that, was because the money wasn't good enough to actually risk my life to do it. So
this is the point. Like, this is what I'm just so there's no workman's comp, because my father died on the job, and it was a blessing that that's where he died, because my stepmother got workman's comp to raise my younger brother and sister for 18 years, and it, was life changing. So so you're responsible for your medical, you're responsible for your own retirement. Yeah. So when you're thinking you're making twice as much, you better be putting a lot of that into retirement, because there's no 401k plan for you. There's no workman's comp. And Albert, regardless. You think it's funny, but say you fell down in the park, well, you don't have ice. I'm thinking if it's snowy. All right.
Well, there's ice in California. We're not that cold.
Just think, imagine if you got heat stroke walking from your car to the office.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. You could get hurt at work. People get hurt at offices too. I mean, carpal tunnel is a perfect example. So you can't go on disability.
I hope I'm smart enough to have Obamacare and have signed up for that or something.
Well, you are this week. But
I am this week. Yeah, I finally have health care. I can go get heat stroke and hurt myself now. Yeah, I'll be okay.
Wait, Kelly?
If you're making an enormous amount of money, then Obamacare is not going to subsidize your health insurance. It's just going to direct you to something cheap. And so it doesn't really affect you who are in a certain income bracket. It really is only designed to affect people like me who are in such an income bracket that says if I have to pay $150 a month in insurance and I can't really afford it, that the government's going to send me a big check in April that says, here, afford health insurance because it's necessary, and you're a part-time employee, and people make you a part-time employee so that they don't have to give you health insurance.
Yeah. So
it's essentially subsidized by people like me who make more money and have to pay into that system. So,
of course, that's how all insurance works. That's how bad drivers are covered. But how many of your peers are like? Is this because you're in Silicon Valley? You three, but Kelsey, not really. I mean, you work in a different environment. But Kelsey, for you specifically, do you have peers that are contracted?
Yeah.
To academia? How many? Is it a common thing?
So I would say that we have about 120 people that work at PAU, and I would say 30% are contract.
And is there a clear perception difference between how your employer sees the contractors versus the full-time employees? And amongst yourselves, does that exist as well, or is it it's totally irrelevant to your day-to-day?
No, it's so irrelevant because our president just has really different views on hiring and wants to have a different just wants to have that same head count when he leaves. So it's like you get a gift card at the holidays, you get invited to all the staff things, you get they basically treat everybody because the HR department knows that there's that discrepancy.
Can you go to HR?
Yeah. I mean, so I had lunch with the president yesterday, and he offered to pay for an MBA for me. And I was like, how is this possible? Wow. I'm a contract employee. And they said that that's just something that he does for everybody. It doesn't matter if it's my boss is getting her MBA. There's a lot of people finishing their bachelor's. And so, I don't know, it's just like, I think it's a unique environment because we're small, and I think it would be really different if we were a big company. So it affects culture at a small company because everybody kind of feels like we're all the same, and it makes for a really good work environment. But because I'm just talking about contract, it's not always good, but for other reasons, I should say.
Sure. I get it. So, Albert, when you're at HP, do you have a Christmas party?
We had I guess, Christmas lunch where the entire team went out to a restaurant and we billed it to the company.
And do they all get presents and you don't get anything? Like they all get gift cards?
You know what? My boss gave all of our colleagues presents, and she kind of shocked me because she came over with like a $50 Target gift card, and I was like, wow, thank you.
Did you feel more grateful because you were a contractor than you would have had you been an employee?
I actually didn't know what to expect. I go to work because I'm there to work. I'm not really expecting, someone to give me Christmas or birthday gifts. Heck, I brought donuts on my birthday to share with everyone. So, that was just kind of like how that worked. But I mean, I guess if you're talking about, I think how much you belong, right? I feel like HP did a much better job of that. I know that when I contracted at Cisco, I remember distinctly one time when I think the entire business unit had like a function, and because I was a contractor, I couldn't come, and my manager had to take me aside and have a really, really, really awkward conversation with me about how, oh, you're a contractor and you can't do this. I'm really sorry. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, so you've worked in good and bad contract cultures
I mean,
too?
the other
not you,
contract role I
Albert.
had a, yeah.
I'm talking. Wait, I want to hear from Hung on that. Wait, because we'll come back. But
Right.
so
go ahead.
I'm interested in the two different cultures. So Cisco versus HP, right? Both contracted workforces, huge percentage, very different cultures. So have you had that experience? Have you had a good work culture experience that was contracted?
It depends on the team. So I would say at Cisco, I've been on 4 different teams now within 6 years, right? So 4 different contracts. I had one manager who was really good to me, and he would go out of his way to figure out how to get me bonuses into my contract, figure out how to get my training paid for, and it's not expected, right? You're not expected to do that as a contractor. I mean, when you have contractors as a manager, like, you don't need to do that, but he wanted to do it for me, and so he had to creatively find ways to do it. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And
did you ever have opportunities to become full-time?
No. It never came. The only time it was a topic was when I actually brought it up, but outside of that, like, they don't really talk to you much about that.
Okay, so
I've had peers at Cisco who ended up becoming full-time employees if positions open up and they're encouraged to apply for it.
That's really rare, though, you know?
Yeah.
It is, okay. So tell me about Culture Summit, though. So tell me why you started it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was 25 or 26, coming into work at Sun one day and just feeling like I don't know why I'm here. It's a great company, but I felt so disconnected between my role. I was working in enterprise contract management, and I just couldn't understand, like, how I fit into that, how I fit into the company, what was the bigger picture for my career. I never thought about Culture Summit at the time, but just that nugget of, like, wanting that deeper connection to my job always stayed with me all this time. And it wasn't until maybe 3 years ago that I started becoming very entrepreneurial and working on kind of smaller projects and doing workshops and teaching entrepreneurs, lean startup. And finally I decided, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm already teaching workshops. Let's go one step further and scale it up to a conference. And rather than do like a sales conference or a marketing conference, I want to do something I'm passionate about, something I believe that is not talked about much, which is culture. And I feel like with the millennial workforce these days, like, culture is very important, right? I have a 10.
You mean work culture specifically?
Work culture. Because millennials just think differently. They want to feel autonomous, right? It's different when my parents are like, why are you doing all these things? Why don't you just, like, find a job and work and be happy and get married and have kids?
Okay, you don't think that differently, because we just had a Gen X hangout last week, and it's funny. No, I get it that there's a difference, but a lot of Gen Xers are freelancers too, or contracted too, because they had to be, and the economy turned everything upside down, and definitely entrepreneurial and self-starters because they have no choice. Okay, tell us what you do exactly with Culture Summit. It's just so interestingly connected to what this is about.
I do everything it takes to put on a conference, which is a lot of work that I'm realizing. I have a small team that helps me, but everything you can think of, from marketing and sales and creating content and business development, recruiting speakers, to figuring out the logistics.
But it's always about company culture?
It's about company culture. It's about building great teams, but then I pull in different aspects. So I talk about engineering culture. I talk about design culture, how you use design to create your products. So I know culture is too broad of a word, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, like, building the great teams that build great companies.
And do they include contractor and not, like, do you talk about that issue?
No, but that's a good point you brought up.
Well, it's just to me, it's the reason I wanted to do this hangout in the beginning was I couldn't stop thinking about, if I was a contractor, how I would feel. And I had a very different experience, because when I was first out of school, you were expected to go and work full-time and have benefits. That was the expectation. I mean, I'm in a different world now because I'm an entrepreneur, but I just, so I'm just seeing this avenue for you, if you could create a platform on how to create culture with contracted workers, right, since you have such experience. Anyway, sorry to go off on that tangent. Kelly, hiding in the dark. It's not a padded cell, you guys that don't know him. We've asked. So so
Or is it?
so how many contract jobs have you had in your minimum wage life? How many?
2.
What was the second one?
So,
What
so
was-
the first one was the contracted sales position, and
Oh
the
yeah,
second
yeah, that's
the
right.
coaching.
Would you? So what are you in now? You're just an hour. You have no contract at all, right?
Yeah, so I'm an at-will employee.
So you're just an hourly worker that they could fire tomorrow too.
Yes, I mean that's the thing is that oddly enough, in my position at least, it's really no different. They don't even need a reason. They can literally just fire me at any moment for nothing.
But there is a big difference in that you're not making nearly as much money per hour.
But I also would say that in my position, my income is more stable. Like I said, doing the commission sales, if I didn't make
Oh
a sale,
yeah. No, I meant compared to the type of contracts like Kelsey has, right?
well, yeah, okay. But I mean, hers also comes with having had that education in that field. So let's say I was doing contract work in construction, for example. Once again, if I'm doing labor work, then there's probably not as much security in that as there would be if I was actually just hired by a company as an employee.
Okay.
In the same fashion, any sort of contract work I can get at my hireability level, just on paper, probably comes with a lot less financial security than what I can get even as an at-will employee. Technically, if I was working full-time there, I could get benefits. I know they're incredibly terrible, but I could get benefits. The other thing too is that I have promotional opportunities. I've been promoted. I've gotten different positions where I'm working.
Okay.
And I know that even when I was working in the sales company, there were promotions, but it was all basically based on the concept that nobody was actually, you have 5% of people are gonna be able to do this job because it's soul sucking and kind of inhuman to do it.
You could go sell timeshares like Glenn Ross. If you haven't watched that, watch it.
Oh,
All right.
Yeah. So.
Have you ever watched that movie? Go watch it if you think sales are horrible. All right.
I've seen the scene, the famous scene from that.
It's great if you're a salesperson. Okay, I want to shift gears just a little bit, and I want to ask, okay, Kelsey, and I want to ask about like the future of this contract world. Like, do you ever see? I know you said you're lucky because you have a partner who has benefits and a full-time job, right? So that you can pay for those ridiculously expensive pet products you buy.
Oh, and the $1,500 surgery that happened Friday. Yeah.
We did a hangout on pets, and Kelsey feeds her cats like distilled water and all sorts of insanity. So what's see, if you come on, I'll always zing you. You'll learn this like later down the road. But so, what's your future like? Is there a day where you foresee becoming a full-time employee when the president finally retires and things are different? Is like, what's your future? And if it's not here, and I don't mean tomorrow, but I mean, are you quite happy to remain a contract employee forever?
Well, that's a good question because I've been struggling with that for a long time because I think I'm ready to either take on more responsibility or have a promotion. And that's something that I'm running into because that's why I had lunch with the president, because if I'm going to be looking for other jobs, project manager, content manager, whatever, I wanted to ask PAU to say, hey, kind of in a soft way, I'm thinking of leaving. Do you want to promote me or not? And so that's why I met with the president.
And the promotion requires no more contractor, right?
No, I do contract. I do contract forever. I think that it gives me so much more freedom than what my other jobs used to be. And we talked about. I want to touch on like the sick time and the 401k and everything. You can contribute to a retirement fund, a Roth IRA, and you don't need a company to, do that.
Yeah, there's just no match, and that match can be significant.
There's no match, but I mean, even tech workers. My husband, he doesn't have a match. He doesn't have a full match. He has some of a match. So it's even, and he's a software engineer. So it's not. It doesn't happen for everybody in full-time jobs, and I think that it just has to be with the proper. I've had to learn the ropes a little bit. that it's with the proper, planning and the resources that I think a lot of contract workers don't have, free legal resources, or your company. I found out that our company has a lawyer that I could use even as a contract employee to do my contract negotiations. And then also working in, how many sick days do I think I'm going to take? I'm taking a 3-week trip to Patagonia, and I worked that into my hourly rate so that I would at least be okay for that month, So I think that's something that the contract employee workforce needs to be empowered to do, and there needs to be more resources in a community around that. Here are the resources that are available to you as a contract employee. So that's just something that I think, and even knowledge. Kelly just shared something that I didn't know. I think it's just knowledge sharing that has to happen in this growing niche market. I don't know what you think though for Gen Xers that are freelancing.
I don't know what I think. Mary, so you're about to embark on your real career, right?
Yes.
After finally graduating, after switching majors and remaking her life. I can't believe you're already graduating. Would you take a contract job, or are you like, whatever, as long as I can do what I want? Do you have a vision for what? Would you rather be full-time? Have you thought about that?
Well, I know that I definitely want to start having positions where I at least am under contract, so that I'm not just an at-will employee, because that's what I've been. Like with the last 2 places that I was working at with a freelancer, the one I just stopped getting called in because they stopped having work for me to do, and then the other, that one was harder to leave because I really liked working with him and he really liked working with me, but our schedules didn't match up anymore. But honestly, yeah, I'll take it if I have at least some type of job security with it, which I know a lot of you guys are saying it doesn't give you much, but at least would be a little bit more than what I have now, and yeah.
Okay, so Hung, what is the future if your many entrepreneurial things don't take off? Is the goal then a full-time job with benefits and pension?
Yeah,
401k?
I've been contracting for almost 6 years. Now I've decided I'm going to start interviewing, and I am interviewing for full-time positions, but that's just as a backup. I'm still going to go strong on the entrepreneurial endeavors, and in some ways I feel like I can do both, because I don't see myself, someone who's going to start the next Facebook, but I like having micro businesses. I like creating different streams of income so that if something doesn't work out, I'm not, tight on money. I'm not stressed out because I'm not working.
And you're not solely reliant on a company that goes bankrupt or lays you off. Yeah, so there's a weird type of security in doing that, even though it can feel insecure, right? Yeah, so okay. And Albert, so here you are, full-time employees. This is the first time, right? Or in a long time that you've been a full-time employee.
Yeah, it's been at least, I think, 1.5 to 2 years. It feels kind of weird.
It feels like too secure?
Yeah.
Wait till you get your Christmas bonus.
I don't mind. I know. But, it's like, I've been contracting for so long, and, always looking behind my back, and it kind of feels weird that maybe I don't have to do it. That kind of thing. I think the other thing that I noticed about, contract gigs and full-time gigs is, we had this discussion yesterday on my Facebook group regarding skills and career trajectory, where I've gone from, I think, learning specific platforms to being, I think, a little bit more, I would say, strategic and writing a lot of emails. And, I guess I don't know how I feel about, I think, writing a lot of emails. That's an interesting, I think, experience in itself. But yeah, it's, I guess, I'm getting used to the idea. It's, I think, it's something that's not very, I think, native to me, being in a full-time permanent.
Okay, it feels like maybe you're a boomer.
Yeah.
Feels very millennial, especially, I guess, in your world where you work and the environment you've lived in.
Yeah.
And you're in Orange County, too, so you're not even in Silicon Valley anymore. You're just
I was at a tech event last night, and, it was pretty cool. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, yeah. Kelly, so when you get your full-time job, and I know, Kelly and I keep trying to hook up to talk about, what his future should be, but do you have a clear preference for full-time work versus contract work?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess I like to know where I stand in a company and like to know that I have growth potential. It's like Hung had brought up before that working as a contractor, it was hard for him to feel like he had options out of that because you're not necessarily going to grow within a company. You're just going to keep doing whatever you're contracted to do.
Yeah, yeah.
On the other hand, we've talked about people, Albert, you'd mentioned people that have been in contract work for 15 years at Cisco, and I'm sure at some point the parameters of what they do changed a little bit.
I think it makes sense if you're like you have a family
probably
and you're,
All right.
okay with
They
that.
probably renegotiate.
Nope, Albert, I'm going to stop you because we're going to tie things up soon.
Okay,
And,
sure.
okay, and you know what I see is that there are very different types of contracts. I mean, Kelsey has a very sweet deal and a different environment, and we will definitely come back to this topic. And I'm going to have to say goodbye now, so thanks everybody who watched, and our blog recap comes out on Sunday. I'm going to stop the live broadcast, and if you guys want to hang on, hang on. Bye, everybody.